Ladies and gentlemen, there's a group out there called C.A.I.R. C.A.I.R. Over the years, it has successfully intimidated talk show hosts. And when I first got to the air, I decided, no, they're not going to intimidate me. Even though they've succeeded in getting people fired and so forth, I'm not going to put up with it. And I've made it clear to this disgusting little organization that if there's any interference with this broadcast and my contract, that I will sue them for everything they're worth, for tortious interference. And I won't settle. I'll take depositions. I'll conduct interrogatories. I'll get to the bottom of this organization once and for all. I want to remind you that this organization was an unindicted co-conspirator. Our friends at PJ Media, in particular J. Christian Adams, has a great piece today at PJ Media, a wonderful website. And Congressman Frank Wolf is onto this group. See, Congressman Wolf wrote the FBI about the FBI's violation of the ban on cooperation with the unindicted co-conspirator terrorist organization, C.A.I.R, as J. Christian Adams puts it, Council on American Islamic Relations, according to a just-released Department of Justice Inspector General report. C.A.I.R was determined to be related to the web of terrorist financing during the Holy Land Foundation trials in Dallas, Texas. And that was a trial that resulted in guilty verdicts. And afterwards, the FBI issued a blanket policy, no cooperation in the field with C.A.I.R. Now, we have this new FBI director, James Comey. So Frank Wolf directed his letter to James Comey. The FBI's Office of Public Affairs, however, issued instructions to ignore the policy. So Adams writes at PJ Media, why are DOJ press flunkies in Washington, D.C. issuing directives to FBI field offices about how to deal with C.A.I.R? The answer to this question lies at the heart of the scandal, demonstrating that the politicized lawlessness of the Eric Holder Justice Department now is affecting the FBI. Now, let me give you this quote from the Department of Justice Inspector General's report. Quote, instead, a different headquarters entity, the Office of Public Affairs, this is where the press acts are, provided policy interpretation and advice to FBI field offices on potential interactions with local C.A.I.R chapters without consulting, name redacted. And he says, I suspect the redacted name is a national security component that would have objected to the interaction. Following the directive from the press office, the FBI brought C.A.I.R to teach diversity training to FBI officials in New Haven, Connecticut in October 2010 and in Chicago in December 2010. Yet the rules specifically prohibit this group C.A.I.R from participating in an FBI Citizens Academy community outreach program. Quote, nevertheless, based on guidance it received from the Office of Public Affairs, the Philadelphia field office allowed a local C.A.I.R official to attend as an invited guest. A few days later, C.A.I.R Philadelphia posted an article on its website describing its participation in the training program with a link to the FBI website. C.A.I.R is involved in training in FBI facilities. I mean, folks, the DOJ Inspector General report only pertains to 5 documented instances of C.A.I.R being brought into the DOJ family, but Congressman Wolf correctly notes in his letter that this probably only represents a fraction of everything else that's going on. So as J. Christian Adams points out, this is a radical, hard Islamist group. Unindicted co-conspirator terrorist organization C.A.I.R, Council on American Islamic Relations, he writes, was determined to be related to the web of terrorist financing during the Holy Land Foundation trials in Dallas. And so I look at the Daily Caller website, another great website, and I read this headline yesterday evening. C.A.I.R attacks Fox News, Limbaugh, Levin as Islamophobic. Carolyn May. The Council on American Islamic Relations denounced a number of popular media organizations and Americans as Islamophobic in a report released Thursday. The Muslim advocacy group calls out such entities as Fox News, the Rush Limbaugh Show, the Washington Times, National Review, the Mark Levin Show, and so forth, as part of the outer core of the so-called Islamophobic network. According to the report, the 32 outer core groups, I guess I'm one of them, are comprised of groups or individuals, this is a quote, whose primary purpose does not appear to include promoting prejudice against or hatred of Islam and Muslims, but whose work regularly demonstrates or supports Islamophobic themes. Oh, I see. Like opposing the Islamo-Nazis in Tehran who slaughter their own Muslim brothers and sisters, or who execute gay Muslims. Oh, I see. I'm part of the Islamophobic core circle. The outer core is not quite as explicitly Islamophobic as the inner core, the group alleges, tagging 37 groups whose primary purpose is to promote prejudice against or hatred of Islam and Muslims, and whose work regularly demonstrates Islamophobic themes. And they go on. The report traces the money to and from Islamophobic groups and people, looks at the level of Islamophobia in America, anti-Islam legislation and discrimination. C.A.I.R, an unindicted co-conspirator, again in the 2007 Holy Land Foundation trial, also calls out Foster Friess for his support of C.A.I.R proclaimed Islamophobes, including presidential candidate Rick Santorum. The group includes former Republican presidential candidate Herman Cain, Peter King, former Florida Republican Alan West, and the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Azuddin Jasser, who's a great guy, on their so-called worst list inductees. New Jersey, listen up, New Jersey. New Jersey Republican Governor Chris Christie, Illinois Democratic Senator Dick Durbin, who the other day was promoting a radical Palestinian. Look at this, at the DREAM Act's working. Stupid little creep. And the Democratic members of the House Homeland Security Committee, on the other hand, are named C.A.I.R's best list inductees. So, Chris Christie's on C.A.I.R's best list inductee list. That would be the unindicted co-conspirator in the 2007 Holy Land Foundation trial. Now, C.A.I.R held a news conference on the report, legislating fear, Islamophobia, and its impact in the United States 2011 and 2012 yesterday morning. While the Daily Caller was absent from C.A.I.R's list of Islamophobic news outlets, C.A.I.R spokesman Ibrahim Hooper, whose name used to be Dougie Hooper, the hoopster, he prevented the Daily Caller from attending the press conference because, you see, they're in one of the Islamophobic spheres. He showed them the door, he said, because they're a hate group and they're not legitimate. Unlike C.A.I.R, the unindicted co-conspirator. You're credentialed with a hate site, Dougie Hooper said, when the Daily Caller showed Hooper media credentials. You see, Dougie, in our country, you should know this, Dougie, you're in our country. In our country, we don't treat news outlets like that, Dougie. When the Daily Caller pointed out that the Daily Caller is not listed in C.A.I.R's Islamophobe report, Hooper replied, You're not in our news conference either. Dougie Hooper. Ibrahim Dougie Hooper. Well, I started a list today. Creepy, sleazy, unindicted co-conspirator list of a particular group that poisons our politics, that besmirches our Constitution, and gives aid and comfort to an enemy. That's right, I said it. And you know who's on that list? In the inner core. The unindicted co-conspirator group. C.A.I.R, that's who.